Hi, my name is Kathleen Carlucci, and I want to welcome you to the Thomas Edison Center at Menlo Park. We're going to learn about Thomas Edison, the wizard of Menlo Park, and the amazing things that he'll do here and in his lifetime. Thomas Edison was born the seventh child of Nancy and Samuel Edison, February 11, 1847. His birthday plays a big part in later history. A lot of dedications were done on that day, and it's also the National Inventors Day in America, February 11th. Thomas Edison was a sickly child, and he didn't even begin school until he was 7 years old. He was born in this beautiful little town, Milan, Ohio, but the father decided to move the family to Port Huron to better the family circumstances. And so Thomas Edison began school at the age of 7. He had scarlet fever, and we're not sure if that's what affected his hearing, but he did have a little bit of a problem. He said after the age of 10, he never heard a bird sing again. Thomas Edison began school, and he did overhear the teacher one day talking to another instructor saying that he was addled and he couldn't learn. Well, Thomas Edison's mother was told that by him, and she was very upset. She said, "You don't know how to teach a really bright boy." She knew by the questions he asked that he was very smart. And so she had been a school teacher when she was young, and so she started teaching him. And he had a love of reading, and both of his parents encouraged him. His father was an entrepreneur. He actually made wooden shingles for buildings and whatever else he could figure out how to make money to make his family live. It was a very difficult time. Thomas Edison thought at the age of 12 that his mother must have taught him everything she knew. Of course, she could not have, but he decided to ask permission to get a job. So his father, Samuel, arranges for him to have a job working on the Grand Trunk Railroad. That's a steam engine that would stop at all the towns from the town of Port Huron, where he now lives, in Michigan, all the way to the big city of Detroit. And on this journey, they would stop at all the train stations on the way. Thomas Edison was fascinated because they had the telegraph in almost all of those train stations. Well, let me tell you a little something about the telegraph. The telegraph is the first communication system that goes long distance, and Edison was thrilled with it. Another one of his loves was chemistry. When Thomas Edison was a boy, he would always be begging to get a little bit of money so he could get some chemicals, and he would do experiments in the family home. Well, his mother heard some explosions at one time, and then she had bad smells coming up, so she said, "I want you to move out to the barn." She was getting a little concerned. Well, he does burn that family barn down, and he gets in a lot of trouble. And his parents did punish him, but they wanted him to know, they wanted him to pursue his interests, just be more careful. And so Thomas Edison now have this job, he's 12 years old, which sounds crazy that a 12-year-old would have a job, but this was not at all unusual at that time. Everybody chipped in to help the family. Edison would work every day, and he would turn the money over to his mother, who would then give him an allowance. And of course, what did he do with that? He bought more chemicals, and he did more experiments. His job was called a candy butcher, or a butcher boy. He was selling candy and newspapers on the train, walking up and down the train. And he would overhear things people would say. Like, "Oh, I'm hungry, I wish I had some food," or "Oh, I have to go to the market when I get home, and I'm so tired." So he had an idea. See, Thomas Edison was quite a young entrepreneur himself. He said to his mother, "If we have food left over at night, can you make some sandwiches and I'll sell them on the train? And you know what? And you have some extra veggies sometimes that you trade. I probably can sell them for cash on the train. It'll stop people from having to make an extra trip." And so he does. He's getting so busy, he's hiring some of his friends to work for him. Thomas Edison, who was known as Al because his middle name is Thomas Alva Edison, was making more money than some adult men did at that time. It was amazing. Now, Edison is really curious about the news of the day. He's selling the newspaper, but he noticed that the news that he's looking at and the news that he hears when he stops off at all those train stations where the telegraph offices are, that he's hearing more updated news, like, oh, the Battle of Shiloh just happened. Well, they don't have that in the newspaper. He's got some ideas formulating in his mind. Now, the train would go all the way to the big city of Detroit, where it would stop for a layover. Thomas Edison would spend the 2 or 3 hours reading all the books in the library. His idea was, I'll start with A and I'll go through Z. Well, then he started mixing it up in whatever his interest is. Of course, what do you think Thomas Edison's favorite subject is? Well, it's science, of course, and chemistry being the main one. But he loves this brand new technology with the telegraph. He also loves to read Shakespeare. He likes to learn. That is really the goal that he has. I want to learn. Thomas Edison got permission. He figured, oh, I read all those books in the library. I want to conduct science experiments. He got permission from the conductor to do them in the baggage car. The only thing was he had to put away all his chemicals before they started back home, for later on that evening. Well, one day he did not tie down all his chemicals properly, and we think it was phosphorus that spilled over onto the mailbag, setting them on fire. Oh, they had to stop the train, they had to throw everything out, put the fire out. Yeah, he was off that train for a while. They did give him permission to get back on, but no more chemical experiments, of course. And so Edison's learning. He's making mistakes, but he's not giving up, and he's learning. And so he decides what he can do is, well, gee, if I have all this time, what am I going to do with that 3 hours? Wait a minute, the newspapers. He buys what they call a proofers press from like a little store in town. It was a used little printing press, and he makes his own newspaper. He calls it the Weekly Herald, and he's charging a monthly fee. It's actually very popular, and he's doing really, really well. And all the news from the war is more updated because he's printing it from what he hears coming off the different telegraph depots as he goes down. And so it's a pretty successful newspaper. Well, when you look at this little newspaper, you'll see spelling errors and all, but he was learning. One day he's on his way to work. His mother's got some sandwiches for him to sell. There's some veggies. He's got these blank papers that he's going to make on the newspaper, the first one ever made on a moving train. And he sees a little boy playing by the railroad tracks. He looks off and he sees a train is coming in. The baggage guy up top, the brakeman, he's trying to get the baggage car to stop, and he's furiously turning the brake, and it's not working. Edison makes a snap judgment. He's like calculating, can I get to that baby in time and get out safely? He dives in, and the train passes by. The crowd is in an uproar. They don't know, did this boy and that baby get killed? Or what happened? After the train passes, they see them on the ground. Baby's a little upset. Thomas Edison, still Al at that time, is brushing himself off. A big crowd comes out because they heard the screams. The station master, Mr. Mackenzie, he comes out to find what's going on. This boy here, he saved a child. What's your name, young man? Oh, my name's Edison. This boy Edison, he saved this little baby. Mr. Mackenzie's Edison. That sounds familiar. Wait a minute, isn't that boy that burned his family barn and he set that train on fire? He comes over to see what trouble this Edison kid is into. The crowd parts because Mr. Mackenzie is the head telegraph operator and he runs that station. He looks down, the man almost collapses. This was no ordinary child that was saved, it was his son. He immediately puts his hand in his pocket to give a reward to young Al Edison. And he said, no, sir, I can't accept a reward. I did what anybody should do. He said, young man, there must be something I could do. Well, we said Edison's a bright boy, right? So he's thinking quickly. He said, well, I always ask the telegraph operators if they can show me some things. I made my own telegraph at home with my friend. I've memorized Morse code, but I don't know how to do it professionally. I don't know the little tricks of the trade. Can you show me some of those things? Mr. Mackenzie looks at this young boy who just saved his family from really an emotional collapse. And he said, "How old are you?" "Oh, I'm 15, sir." 15. You already know Morse code. You have an interest in it, he's thinking. "Okay, I got an idea for you. Go home and ask your parents. If they give permission, you can move in with me and my family. I will train you, apprentice you as a telegraph operator." This was an amazing thing for Edison. I mean, you had to either pay someone to train you or you had to work for them for a long time for low pay. And this is being offered to him for free. He was praying his parents agreed, and they did. Young Edison, now he's 16 years old. He's using the name Thomas now. He wants to be a telegraph operator, and Mr. Mackenzie ensures that he does. So Thomas Edison now travels around different parts of the country as an itinerant telegrapher. Basically, it's like a traveling telegraph operator, filling in different positions. He'd even tell some of his work friends, "Go ahead, you go to sleep. I'll take your section of time," because he wanted to get better at it. He practiced and practiced until he was really quite good. They called that having a good hand. And Edison was very quick and getting quicker every day. He's traveling up to parts of Canada. He's going down south. He eventually winds up in Boston, which is a very tight-knit community, very interested in the telegraph and other new inventions happening. He works, of course, for the largest employer in the world, Western Union. But he keeps his days open to make inventions. He's always got a new idea in mind. He rents a little space in the Charles William Jr. shop, where very famous people of the day are working. And he's working on a duplex where you can send 2 messages over one line at the same time. He's not the only person working on it, but he's making them and he's selling them. And then he gets this bright idea. He had read something in a technical journal, because even though Thomas Edison stopped going to a traditional school, he never stops learning. He reads everything he can get his hands on. And it's an idea about having a vote recording machine to have voting go quicker. And he's created one. Well, he didn't have the money to buy the patent application, but one of his friends up there, he said, "I just got an inheritance from an aunt. How about if I become your business partner?" So it's Edison's first patent. He's 21 years old. He goes to the legislature to try to sell this device, which was called the vote recorder. It was electronic, and he's imagining one in front of each of the legislators' desk. And then when a vote comes up, instead of going through, 50 people or how many other legislators there are, everyone would hit either the yes switch or the no switch. It would send a chemical along a pre-treated piece of paper, dropping it down, and all the voting would be done quickly. So he's thinking, this is great. So he brings it to the gentleman in charge of buying things for them, and they watch him do the demonstration. It's working perfectly, and then they turn to him and say, "And why would we want this? We don't want voting to go quicker. We want it to be slow. We want to filibuster. We want to change the minds of the people who think differently than us. So no, we don't want it." Now, some years later, Edison asked, "Oh, how did you feel when your first patent was a failure?" And "What do you mean a failure?" He's like, "It worked." He goes, "And I learned a valuable lesson from this. Never create something that doesn't have a practical purpose." So Edison feels that even things that don't work out are successes in some regard because he's learning from them. While Thomas Edison had poured all his money into this device, he actually borrowed money, and now he was out of a job because he quit, because he was going to be an inventor, which was his lifelong dream. Well, Thomas Edison hears about a job at a division of Western Union called the Golden Stock Indicator Company in New York City. He doesn't have the money, but finally somebody lends him the money for the steamship fare, and he comes by boat to New York. But by the time he shows up, the job is filled. His friend, Franklin Pope, feels bad. He said, "You know what, sleep in the cot in the back room until you find a position." So Edison's looking at the machine that Franklin Pope is in charge of. It's like an early form of a stock ticker. It looks a lot like a telegraph machine. And he's fascinated. Edison just has this, innate ability to understand how mechanisms work, and they really did just fascinate him and excite him. So he goes out looking for a job, and when he comes back, the whole office is in uproar. There's people out in the streets screaming, "What's the price of gold? What's the price of silver?" Edison peeks in the window and he sees his friend Franklin is in trouble. The machine is not working, and the big bosses around him, these men with their fine suits and their long beards and their hats, are looking at him and pointing to his friend, and he feels terrible. Well, his friend Franklin sees him, and he told his assistant, "Go get Mr. Edison over there. I need a fresh pair of eyes on this machine. I can't figure out what's wrong." And so Edison comes over and he's asked to take a look at it, and he walks around the machine. Now, he had already been, checking this machine out, and, was fascinated by it. And he thinks he sees what it is. There's a little spring out, and he pushes it in. The machine starts working. Now Edison is a hero. And Mr. Orton, who was president of that company, said, "Hire him. He's your new assistant." Mr. Orton looks at this young Edison coming to work every day, when he sees him, and he's admiring him. He notices something special about him. Edison's always trying to make things work better because of the love of it. He really enjoys his work. And Mr. Orton, thinks, what, I'm going to give him a chance here. So he tells Edison, I have some work I want done, so I want to give you some men, a place to work, and the materials you need, and I just want first right of refusal on my patents. I want you to make my telegraph machine work better. I want you to make my stock ticker work better. Well, Orton will become a really good mentor to Tom Edison. And so Edison actually partners with his friend Franklin Pope, and they create what's called the universal stock ticker. The problem with the stock ticker was it would come out of synchronization. So they create this device called a unison coil. And they were really happy with the way it was working. They weren't sure, gee, how much should we ask for it? The story is that Edison was like, should we ask like $2,000? I mean, that was a lot of money at that time. And so for whatever reason, Edison is the one sent to make the deal, with the buyer of this device. And he's thinking, okay, we were saying 2,000, but all these men, Edison's basically sleeping in his clothes. He's taking care of himself. He doesn't have a home. He's just sleeping on in a bed in someone's house kind of situation. And these men are all finely dressed in their silks, and he says the wrong thing. He says, "How much do you want to pay us for it?" Well, they could have said $50. I mean, he just didn't know. Well, they go and they talk, and they come back and they say, "How does $40,000 sound?" Well, it sounded just fine to young Edison. He said, "Sure." I mean, that's like $750,000 today. He was just so thrilled. Now, later on, they say that the story is that he said, we didn't expect, after the papers were signed, of course, we didn't expect to make that much money. We thought, $2,000 maybe. And they said, "Oh, Mr. Edison, you did not take advantage of us. We were authorized to offer you up to $80,000. But Edison, this set him on a path. It's at this point, he's not feeling that terrible because now he can quit working directly for anyone and he could become an inventor. And his dream is to make patents and to sell them, and then to make more patents and to sell them. And of course, that will happen. He actually opens up a shop in Newark, New Jersey on Ward Street. That street today is known as Edison Place, and the building is still there. And he's making improved telegraphs, improved stock tickers. He's also making fire alarms. He has a new partner now. So one day in Edison's new shop, he has a new partner. There's a rainstorm, and these two young ladies kind of back into the overhead to stay out of the rain. And his partner, they need some people to check out their, test their fire alarms. So he offers the job to these young ladies who go home, and I guess they get permission from their parents. They were 16 years old, which is an adult at that time, but still, they're young unmarried women. And Edison sees the ladies, and he's particularly interested in this young beauty, in his opinion, called Mary Stillwell. And Edison grew up in a machine shop culture, and he works with a lot of guys and all their jokes and all of that. And he doesn't really know how to speak to a young lady. He finally gets the nerve up, and he walks over to her, and he's complimenting her on her diligence on her job, and he notices, she's always taking care to do the right thing at work. And I guess he thinks the conversation's going well, and so he says, how would you like to get married next Tuesday? Well, of course that did not go over well. She's a young, shy young lady, and she has this man, the business owner, asking to marry. So she said, I'll have to talk to my parents. Well, of course they don't marry the following Tuesday. The father and mother want them to get to know each other, and they do fall in love, and they do get married 6 months later. And they'll have 3 children together. First they'll have their daughter Marion, and then their son Tom Jr. Edison, always a practical joker, nicknames the 2 of them. He nicknames a lot of his workers and his friends, but he nicknames his daughter Dot and his son Dash, after his love of the Morse code. Edison wants to get out of Newark. It's a very busy, congested city. He doesn't own the building that he's in, and he wants to move into a more quiet area where he can really concentrate, because he has this goal. He actually wrote down goals that he wants to accomplish, and he wants to create, a small invention, every 15 days or so, 10 to 15 days, and a large one every 6 months, which is a very lofty goal. And he finds a failed housing development. The houses weren't selling, it was recession, called Menlo Park. But the thing about Menlo Park is it's about 36 acres, and it's right by the railroad. So Thomas Edison wants to move out of Newark, New Jersey. He doesn't own the property that he's in, the building, and his landlord wants to have a year lease. That was a new thing at that time, evidently. And he's asking people to look around for a spot for him. Well, someone finds a failed housing development called Menlo Park, and it's located on what was then the Pennsylvania Railroad. And because remember, there are no cars, there's no trucks, there's nothing like that. So you have to be close to transportation. It's either water or by rail. And so this is perfect, he thinks. The only thing built here was the business office, which would become his home with his wife. They buy the property in 1875. Edison asked his father, Samuel, to oversee the construction of the laboratory, which was 100-foot long, 25-foot wide, and 2 stories. Edison had already done another big patent. He created what's called the quadruplex. Now you could have 4 messages going over the same line of a telegraph without having to add a lot of new infrastructure. And he gets another $40,000 for that, and it's a good thing because that will pay for the laboratory. The lab is filled with everything Edison thinks he needs in order to produce. He had been working in England on the transatlantic cable for the printing telegraph, and he sees these amazing electrical test devices there and purchases a number of them and brings them back, and this will really elevate the work that he's doing. He moves his family in here in March of 1875. He'll move his workers here to Menlo Park in March of 1876, and he'll bring some of the workers with him that he met in Newark, and his wife and 2 children, and then they'll have a 3rd baby. Little Will Edison, William Leslie, will be born here at Menlo Park. No nickname that we're aware of. But it's here that Edison will become world famous. He's actually done quite a bit. He's working with companies that are really the movers and shakers, Wall Street, but it will be here that he gets an idea. In 1876, Edison and many people, thousands of people around the world, are working on the telephone, but it will be young Alexander Graham Bell who will actually get the patent for that. The problem with Bell's phone was that the sound did not go far, so Edison's asked to take a look at that. And he actually creates what we know today as a carbon button transmitter. And actually that patent will also lead to the patent of the microphone. It makes the sound transmit far. But while doing that, he hears something, which is ironic because his hearing is getting worse as he gets older. But certain tone levels he can still hear, and he hears something and he gets an idea. And the idea is that we can record sound and play it back. He thought he was just going to be able to record like the, code, if you will, like a Morse code type of situation on a phone. But he's taking it one step further. He makes this drawing, he gives it to his Swiss trained clockmaker, John Crucy, and he makes the machine that Edison calls the phonograph. Basically 2 Greek words meaning sound writer, loosely. And it works the first time. The only invention, Edison said, that ever worked the first time he used it. And it was incredible. He packs it up the next morning and he brings it to the offices of Scientific American in New York City, to the editor's office. Some of his workers are with him, and he had recorded on a piece of tin foil, that was the medium where the recording went, having the machine introduce itself. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, something like, I'm Mr. Phonograph, and I've been invented by Thomas Edison, and so on and so forth. So they bring it to the offices, and the editor thinks, oh, there's a trick. Edison's known to have, funny ways about him, a practical joker. And he said, oh, you made this up. Maybe there's a ventriloquist in here, or somebody's under the table, throwing their voice, pretending that this machine's talking. And Edison said, no, let's try something else. So everyone left the room except for Edison and the editor. And he had the editor record on the device, and it was in the newspaper the next day, proclaiming Thomas Edison as this amazing person who created a machine, and that was not even thought of at that time. And he'll become world famous. He'll become the Wizard of Menlo Park, because he creates a machine that people thought, was it talking? People didn't have the education that we all have today, and they are just mesmerized by this machine that you could talk into. People would actually say, oh, that can't be true. There's no way that could work. And they'd have like very famous and people who were considered to be very honest, like swear that this is a true thing. It's, but people would be like, wait a minute, if I talk to it in French, it speaks back in French. They were like, oh my gosh, really not understanding the science. This phonograph device will become Edison's favorite. He calls it his baby. It will be his favorite invention, and it is the one, actually, that makes him world famous. But of course, that's a whole nother story, because then we have Edison 2 years later perfecting incandescent light. So Edison had moved his family to Menlo Park in March of 1876. And he did have that first building, 100 foot long, 25 foot wide, 2 stories, and it was filled with everything he thought necessary. Plus, he had ordered these amazing test instruments from England, from his visit there. And people, he started doing some amazing things here. He was working on making a lot of different products work better, improvements on still the telegraph, and others. And what he did was he sent a letter to Western Union. He didn't want to work for them, but he wanted to make things for them, like, give us your work. I've got a shop filled with everything you possibly need. He said, he spent $40,000 and, having it built and filling with everything necessary. And so he was, making money. He needed to make money because, doing research is so expensive. So before this time, you had that lone inventor. They'd be working maybe with a partner, maybe at a university. They'd be talking about different ideas. But Edison had a grander goal. When he was thinking about moving out of Newark, New Jersey, he's like, I want to really create an area where I can create and then make adjustments and then create again and do improvements. So he does that. He hires people who are chemists, machinists, glass blowers, blacksmiths, engineers, all these different people with all these different, backgrounds, and he brings them here, and they're setting on to different projects, and he's, paying them whether they're producing the answer to a question or not, because that's what research is. So Menlo Park is known throughout the world as the birthplace of research and development. Edison really creates that team approach to research. And then he starts outgrowing the space he has here. No longer is that laboratory sufficient. In the bottom back corner, they had a machine shop. Well, he needed that area for other research, and he needed a bigger machine shop. So where our current museum stands today, we're on a very small part of the large footprint that was the machine shop. And Edison had all these lathes and he's working on making generators or dynamos work better. And at that time, of course, everything is steam driven because electricity hadn't been put here. The generators at that time were insufficient. They really didn't create you had to put a lot into them to get a little output. So some of the work Edison will do here will be to create better generators, like make them 90% more efficient. And that is true of a lot of his inventions, but he makes them actually working devices. And so Edison has this big machine shop and eventually, and then he's working on other products. He invented that phonograph. It gives him worldwide acclaim. People are coming from all over the world, journalists and famous people of the day, and they want to see what is, Mr. Edison or Dr. Edison or Professor Edison. He had all these special titles. What is he creating here? And he knew people had been working on an electric light for, probably 70 years at least at that point. It was just like the telephone. They knew it was coming. It just wasn't here. And Edison, he knew about it because he saw arc lights. Edison doesn't invent the light bulb and never claimed he did. They had these very bright arc lights that were used outside. And the problem with them, though, was they were dangerous and they were very bright where you were blinded almost by them. He goes to see a demonstration in Sonia, Connecticut. And he looks at it, he says, I think I can have this problem, fixed in a few days. There were people working in England and in France and in Germany, all over. And, but Edison, he's famous now. I don't know if he forgot that. People are listening to him. You're gonna have that done in 3 days. Well, it's not done in 3 days. It's not done in 3 weeks or 3 months. It takes him about 18 months, but what he does is, he perfects incandescent light. That is what Edison does. He makes a commodity that can be used in any home to a point. You have to have a source of power. And so Edison's working on this, and Joseph Swan in England creates what's known as an incandescent light, but it only lasts for a very short period of time, maybe 5 or 6 hours, maybe a little longer. It's just not practical. So Edison's working on this too, and he's, reading research. He's like, what else can it be? But the thing that is always good to know about Thomas Edison is that he doesn't give up. He's really just moving ahead, and the men who were working with him, they were so inspired by this. It's funny because he's only 28 years old when he comes to Menlo Park, but they call him the old man because he's very serious about his work, but also fun-loving at other times. They would take bets. How long is this light bulb going to work? They tried many different materials, They tried Bristol board, which is almost like a type of cardboard. They tried a lot of other things. Edison, on October 21st, 1879, he actually uses a piece of thread we now think came from his wife's sewing box. It's carbonized. They make the carbon on site right here. Everything is this whole little village, this whole little big brain of invention. And now they're taking bets. How long is this going to last? And when it lasts for, 14 to 16 hours, like, okay, we're on to something. And it does burn out. And Edison's like, what is it? He's looking at the bulb. What is it that's the problem? And he realizes it's oxygen. There's too much oxygen in there. So he actually sends his workers down by train down to Princeton to borrow a vacuum pump. And it's not working good enough. And he borrows another one. And it's still not good enough. So he hires a glass blower named Ludwig Bohm, who worked for the Geisler pump company, and he tells him what he wants him to do. They're working to make the vacuum, more tight vacuum, get as much oxygen as they can. That is what leads to Edison's success with the incandescent light. But see, Edison doesn't invent just inventions. He had put his phonograph like on the shelf for 10 years because he's going to create this electrical industry. But how does he create that? He does it by figuring out what does he need in order to have electricity get to people's homes in a safe manner. But just as importantly, maybe, is it's in an affordable manner. It's got to be at least the same, if not cheaper, than gas lighting, which was so dangerous. But that was the popular lighting, like the people with the millionaires and people who had money, they had gas lights and they had to be lit every day. And if they had blown out for some reason, the whole family could have died. So this was a really important thing. And so Edison will make those generators work more efficiently. He'll create meters, on and off switches. How do I price for it? And he can't do this by himself. So he has investors like JP Morgan, like Vanderbilt, and they're all working together to create this new invention. I mean, this was such a time of so many new inventions coming through, and Edison's electrical distribution system was one of the most incredible. It changes the way people live. It's not just a matter that people had electric lights. Eventually that will lead to other appliances, because Edison felt that if he had more things running electricity, the overall cost of the power source itself would be less expensive. And so he'll start a company. His prime partner was JP Morgan, and it was called the Edison General Electric Company. Today it's known as GE, or General Electric, and it's still a company that's running. And so Edison will create, electric fans. Then they'll have, electric ice boxes and electric vacuums and all these different appliances. And so the industry grew because they had this source for power. And so this would be incredible. So that's why people think of Thomas Edison, they think of the light bulb, which, by the way, they were never called light bulbs at that time. They were called lamps, and they're beautiful, and they were all hand blown at first. He had his first lamp factory here close in proximity to the Menlo Park site, and they were all handmade. And it was all because he finally figured out what was the crux of the problem, and it was the vacuum pump. When people visit Menlo Park, one of the highlights is, of course, Edison phonographs. These are all Edison phonographs right here. And the amazing thing is they all still work, even though these in the front are over 120 years. That one's probably only 110 years. And so the devices still work. And of course, we always say that it's because Edison's name is on them. And of course, that's how they work. Now, Edison originally had these working with a battery, but batteries were a little harder to work with back then. They were basically a glass jar with acid in them. So he created more of a mechanical system, whereas you wind these up and inside there's a spring case or a box, and it holds the tension. Just think of like a music box, or a Hot Wheels car. You pull them back and it tightens the friction, and then you let it go, and that's what happens here. So these machines are called phonographs, and they do all work. And the way they work is they have a engine inside, and then of course we have the cylinder. So this is a record. Now the original phonograph, of course, was tin foil, but once you played the tin foil, listen to the sound once or twice, or if you moved it off, it would be bent, and so sound would be a little different. So he created something that had a wax cylinder where you could make copies, and then of course we went to all different types. This is a black wax, and then we have blue amberol. On this machine is a blue amberol, and I'm going to release the sound now and you'll hear it. I just have to put the stylus down. There's one continuous loop on these devices, and sound records in an up and down motion, and basically the stylus is going to read that. Now, for purposes of filming this, I could make this sound a little louder, but these machines did not have volume control except for this. So this is an idiom. You might have heard the expression, put a sock in it, and that came about because of this device. Of course, it sounds much nicer and much louder when it's in there. Now, this device was a little big. I mean, this is a big horn because it had to fill a big space. Most of the other machines had a smaller horn. So another inventor came along and invented a record, a disc record, that is more familiar perhaps. And Edison really did not want to stop using the cylinder. He, for some reason, thought they had better quality sound, but these were popular, and then they actually were much easier to make. And you could put a song, 2 songs on one record eventually. So it's got the same type of makeup. It's got to be wound up every day. And that's the volume control. I hit a little switch and a little sock goes inside. Now there's no entertainment like radio when these first came out or television, so little toys were made. Not an Edison invention, but certainly fun. Uncle Sam. Partners were not so confident. They were worried it was going to fail and then they would be hurting their own investment. But Edison still sent out telegrams to a bunch of newspapers and a bunch of people, and maybe 1,000 people showed up here, either walking, by carriage, horse-drawn carriage, or trains. And he said, I'm going to do the demonstration at midnight on New Year's Eve. And so people came to see, what he had. And it was snow-covered, it's a dirt road kind of environment. They had some like boardwalks coming from the train. And Edison had told all his men, they had to have it lit to get the people there safely. But he told them, okay, turn out all the kerosene lanterns, any torches, get rid of them, turn the gas off. We want complete darkness. And they do a countdown. And they're counting down to midnight, and Edison turns this big wheel, and the lights are lit. There's 100 lights here, and the people are mesmerized. They cannot believe it's like day at night. It was so bright but beautiful. It wasn't burning their eyes. They didn't have to look away, and it was a big awe that went off in the crowd, and people were talking about it day in and day out. As a matter of fact, the train company, the Pennsylvania Railroad, had to add on extra runs because people wanted to come and see the lighted city of Menlo Park. So it was really incredible. And of course, that cements Edison's fame. And then he sets about, creating this electrical distribution system. And he got the permission from the alderman in New York City to light a section of Manhattan. Now, he wanted to do Wall Street, but it was just too crowded. And there were so many wires from all the other devices, the telegraphs and telephones that were there. There weren't a lot of telephones, but it's still, these wires were almost darkening the city sky because they were all over the place. So Edison, of course, just like he did here at Menlo Park, he put all his wires underground. I mean, there were some mistakes. At one point, one of the men had put a shaft through one of the wires, and the horse were getting, feeling electricity on their feet, so it was causing a real problem. But they get through that, they fix that, they insulate it, and Edison lights 1 square mile of Manhattan. He had a big generator plant, basically, on Pearl Street. And these were steam-run generators. Each of them were the size of a big elephant. There were like 5 or 6 of them, and they lit the whole area. So when Edison hit that switch to show that, and there were so many more lights. It was just a thing of beauty. And of course, everybody wants that, But the machines themselves, the power didn't go that far. And so, Edison had to, work on that problem also. And they were quite noisy also. So you didn't really want it too close to your house, but because of direct current, you had to have them closer than you thought. But Edison, it will be forever, linked with the light bulb, which is actually what we have on top of our giant monument here at Menlo Park, standing in the exact area where Edison's desk was inside his lab, because he brought light to the world. And then, of course, he brings electricity to the world. But, that will change. And just like he made so many improvements on different inventions that were around before, during, and after, his time at Menlo Park, improvements will be made on his electrical distribution system. But he laid the groundwork, and it's what people followed. But the most important invention, of course, Edison will create here at Menlo Park will be the whole idea of research and development. And that is why he was able to create 400 patents in less than 7 years and go on to create 1,093 US patents, 1,250 foreign patents in 34 countries. But he could never have done it alone. He did it with the amazing people that worked for him. And those people were so inspired by him that many of them went on and created amazing inventions of their own. So this is our timeline to recorded sound. And no one was even thinking about recording sound, but Scott D. Martinville actually wanted to see what sound looked like. And so he created this phonetograph. And this is what he found. That's his graph on what sound looked like. But he really didn't have the concept of playing it back. That would come about when Thomas Edison was working on recording messages from the phonograph. And he didn't realize that the sound itself would come back. And it's kind of ironic that a man who has such poor hearing, he heard this. It was just very fortunate. And so the first recordings, of course, will be done on tin foil because that's a medium that was available in the laboratory. And they created, this cylinder, had one continuous loop on it. You would put the tin foil on it, and as the vibrations of the voice going up and down would record, that is the recording. Think about like even a DVD today, it has lines on it. It's not the same, but it looks similar. Of course, and then we talk about the cylinders, and then the records, a reel-to-reel. There's also a wire recording, and this is an LP, a 33 1/3 it was called. This is a 45, a single. And then we have 8 tracks, cassettes, and the first CD ever created commercially by Sony was done in honor of Thomas Edison. And then of course we have an iPod, which a lot of you don't even know about, so it's in the right place, it's in a museum. So, and now we have so much more. We have sound that we can buy right off of our online shops, and buying sound and buying music is so different, but still so important to all of us. Standing behind me is the Edison Memorial Tower, which was built as close as the Edison pioneers could figure Edison's desk was inside of his 100-foot laboratory. The Menlo Park site is almost 36 acres today, and people come from all over the world to visit this site and learn more about Thomas Edison at Menlo Park. And Edison called his laboratory and all the other buildings that he would create here his invention factory. His most prolific site, and where he would invent his most famous inventions: the phonograph, perfection of the incandescent light, and the carbon button transmitter for the telephone. It would be on this site that Thomas Edison would change the world. The street out here on Christie is the first street in the world lit with his incandescent light. and people come to visit every day.